All right, folks, get ready. We're heading down under today. Australia. Yeah, the land of amazing and the sometimes pretty strange animals. Definitely unique. We're deep diving into a podcast episode called Wild Australia, Uncovering the Animal Kingdom. Okay, cool. Specifically, Episode 1, The Unique Ecosystem of Australia. And, we really want to understand what makes these Aussie animals so special, right? What are the biggest threats to their survival? And why should we, even way over here, care about them? Well, I think the first thing to consider is just how isolated Australia has been from millions of years. Yeah, like an island continent. Exactly. Yeah, evolution had a whole separate playground down there. So it's no surprise that it's got all these creatures you won't find anywhere else. Nope. Totally unique. Speaking of unique, we got to start with the kangaroo, right? Oh, absolutely. The ultimate Aussie icon. But it's not just one kangaroo, right? No. There are like over 60 different species of kangaroo. Really? Wow. I had no idea. Yeah, and each one is specifically adapted to its environment. Fascinating. But, we see these pictures of kangaroos hopping around. It looks almost effortless. Right, but they're not just hopping around for fun. These guys are serious athletes. Oh, yeah. How so? Well, the podcast mentioned they can reach speeds of 40 kilometers an hour. 40 kilometers an hour, yeah. And jump over obstacles higher than 3 meters. Wow. That's like hopping over a car. I guess those powerful legs are for more than just show. Definitely not. It's essential for their survival. Okay, so from these super athletes, let's move on to another Aussie icon, the koala. Oh, yeah, gotta love those cuddly guys. They're just so adorable. Everyone knows they love eucalyptus leaves. But did you know those leaves are actually toxic to most other animals? Yeah, it's pretty amazing. The koalas have evolved to digest these poisonous leaves. So they have less competition for food? Smart. Exactly. It was competition, but this specialization also makes them incredibly vulnerable. How so? Well, if something happens to those eucalyptus forests, the koalas are in big trouble. Yeah, that makes sense. And that brings us to this really important point that the podcast emphasizes. Conservation. Right. Australian wildlife is facing so many threats. Habitat loss, climate change, invasive species. It's a tough situation. I mean, imagine a bulldozer coming through and clearing the land for development. Yeah, suddenly a koala's home is gone, along with its food source, shelter, everything. It's a really sobering thought. It really is. Yeah. And it's not just these iconic animals that are at risk. Definitely not. The podcast talked about some lesser-known creatures, too, like the numbat. Have you heard of them? Oh, yeah, the numbats. They're really interesting. They're these old marsupials with these striking striped backs, but they're critically endangered. Yeah, habitat destruction and predators like foxes and cats have really taken a toll on them. It's kind of a reminder that every species plays a vital role in the ecosystem. Absolutely. Speaking of unique creatures, there was this crazy fact in the podcast. What was that? It said that something like 90% of Australia's reptiles are endemic. Endemic, meaning they're found only in Australia. Exactly, like the thorny devil and the frilled neck lizard. So if their habitat in Australia is destroyed, those species are gone. Globally? Gone. Globally. Wow, okay, so we've explored the land down under, but what about the oceans? Oh, well, you can't talk about Australia without mentioning the Great Barrier Reef, right? It's like the crown jewel of underwater ecosystems. Right, it's home to thousands of fish species, all these vibrant corals. It's just an incredible sight. The marine biologist in the podcast described it as swimming through an explosion of color and life. It sounds amazing. It really does. But she also issued a warning about the threats to the reef, right? Yeah, sadly, coral bleaching from rising ocean temperatures and pollution are major concerns. So what happens on land really does impact the oceans. Oh, absolutely. It's all interconnected. So it seems like Australian wildlife, both on land and in the sea, is facing some pretty serious challenges. It is, but it's also incredibly diverse and fascinating. Yeah, and I think what's important to remember is that conservation isn't just about saving individual species, it's about protecting entire ecosystems, like the whole web of life. Exactly. And, what's happening in Australia isn't unique to them. It's a reflection of what's happening globally. Exactly. So the efforts being made in Australia to protect their wildlife and ecosystems, it's really important for all of us. It's a lesson for the entire planet. It really is. Well, that's some food for thought. Keep learning about Australia's incredible creatures, folks. It's a world of wonder just waiting to be discovered and worth protecting. Absolutely. That's a wrap for today's episode of Wild Australia, Uncovering the Animal Kingdom. Join us next week as we dive deeper into Australia's fascinating reptiles and amphibians. Don't forget to subscribe and share this podcast with fellow wildlife lovers. Until next time, keep exploring and protect our precious wildlife.